Mathieu Darche met the media, and it was a refreshing experience for Islander fans. We're going to break down the key takeaways from his press conference and what it means for the future of this team next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us to talk Islanders hockey today. And today really was, or Thursday really was, a momentous day in New York Islanders history as Mathieu Darche was introduced to the fans and the media as the New York Islanders' new general manager. And we are going to break down the key takeaways from his introductory press conference, how it affects the big club, how it affects Bridgeport. Plus, we continue our player-by-player look at the team with Marcus Hogberg, his season, and his potential future with the club. We are going to start, though, with Mathieu Darche's introductory press conference. And I got to say, this was very much anticipated. Everydayers, you know, yesterday we talked about what we wanted to hear from Mathieu Darche, and I'll tell you, it was certainly, he covered, let's just say, almost all the bases. And look, we learned right away, or very soon after the start of the press conference, that Patrick Roy going to stay as head coach of the New York Islanders. But Tommy Albaline and John McLean, the assistants in charge of penalty kill and power play, respectively, they're not going to be here anymore. Both of them were not Patrick Roy hires. They were Lou Lamoriello hires. And now that Lou is no longer running the team, they are no longer on the bench. We still do not know yet who will replace them, but we do know that the Islanders have moved on. Now, Benoit DeRosier, who Roy did indeed hire, he's going to remain as an assistant coach. We don't know exactly what his responsibilities will be. But overall, Darche basically admitting, hey, I didn't know Patrick Roy before the last few days, but he has met with Roy, he has spoken with Roy, and these guys are going to work together. And I think in the long run, it makes sense. And here's why. I anticipate that the next 12 months, 13 months, whatever it is, let's say between now and the start of not this coming season, but the season after it, is going to be a time of a lot of change for this organization. Players will be moved in. Players will be moved out. We already have seen coaching changes in the assistants. We have seen changes at Bridgeport, which we will discuss later. And we are also late in the game as far as if you want to hire a new coach. Most of the new, available coaches, the best available coaches, have already been hired somewhere else. So if this year is a transition year for the team, where new talent is coming in, old talent likely to depart, assistant coaches changed, keeping the head coach makes a certain amount of sense. And I'll take it a step further. One of the things that Darche emphasized at his presser I want to see a fast-paced team. That fits with what Patrick Roy has wanted to do, the style that he wanted to play. But that's not the roster that Lou Lamoriello gave him. So hopefully this means Darche will make whatever moves he makes initially to give Roy a roster that is better suited to the type of hockey he wants to play. And then we reevaluate at the end of the first season to see whether Roy and Darche can continue to work together, whether they're a good fit. If the answer is no, you hire a new coach next year. If the answer is yes, and the results are there, and that may not just be in wins and losses, I think you have the making of a successful relationship between the GM and the coach. And again, Roy used to coach and own a juniors team in the Quebec League. Darche has worked with AHL players extensively with his tenure in Tampa Bay. Both of these guys know how to develop younger talent. And hopefully they can work together to make that happen. And Darche went a step further. He said, by saying fast-paced, it doesn't mean we're playing offense because you can't win if you don't defend. But playing defensive and defending are two different things. We want to attack. There's nothing worse than a team that comes at you all the time. That's what I want. And I think what I like about that statement more than anything is that it's not going to be quite the defensive shell that we saw at times under Barry Trotz, but at the same time, it's not going to be the wide open fire wagon hockey that we saw when Doug Weight was the coach in the last year before Lou Lamoriello became GM. And, you know, he's sort of trying to model this after the style that the Tampa Bay Lightning played, obviously, while he was there, which was up until this past year. It's a style that won Stanley Cups, 2 of them for the Lightning. And in both of those years, who did they beat in the conference final? The New York Islanders. So to me, this is sort of the best of both worlds. And now you sort of go about figuring out, okay, if that's the style of hockey that Roy and Darche want to play, how do they fix this roster to make it a better fit? And there are some players who may very well no longer be there by the time the season starts or midseason, trade deadline, whatever the case may be. I get the feeling, though, that this is going to be a gradual process. And I think, you know, at the same time, while Darche said, yeah, we want to compete for the playoffs every year, and that includes this coming season, I think the overall understanding by Darche, if you read between the lines as to what he said and how he said it, he wants to make this team a perennial winner, a playoff team, and a contender every year. You're not going to win the cup every year. The days of winning, 4 straight Stanley Cups and 19 straight playoff series, they're not here anymore. Nobody's done it since, and it probably won't happen in the salary cap era. But, in 2 or 3 years, to have this roster built up and ready to be a consistent contender, that is the ultimate goal. And by the time that happens, there's no doubt in my mind, this roster will look different. This organization will look different. But at the same time, it's not all going to happen at once. And I would advise Islander fans to have an open mind and be patient with Mathieu Darche and with this team, especially this year. This year, 2025, 2026, is going to be a transition year. And they may not make the playoffs this year. In fact, as of now, I don't think they will. Now, a lot of things can change between now and when the season starts and now and when the season ends. Don't get me wrong. We still have draft, trades, free agency, all of that. But I get the feeling that while the ownership and Darche do not want to do the 10-year, 8-year trade everybody away and start from scratch rebuild, the retool will take time. Because let's face it, there are players with bad contracts who are older, who have no trade clauses or modified no trade clauses, or just contracts that no team is going to want to touch with a 10-foot pole unless you either retain salary and or give up assets to get them to do it. So everydayers, you'll remember I have said, you need a smart and clever, creative was the word I think I used several times, general manager to undo the damage and the mess that Lou Lamoriello got this team into, stuck in the muddy middle. I think Darche can be that guy, but it isn't going to happen overnight. And if this franchise needs to either tread water for a year or two or take a step back to take 2 or 3 steps forward, I think because there will be light at the end of the tunnel, instead of just knowing that you're sinking slowly into the quicksand of the muddy middle, that this is something that fans can get on board for. And seeing young, exciting talent, whether it's a Cole Iserman or whoever the Islanders pick in the first round, or Cal Ritchie, or all of those players, really. I mean, seeing a future that looks brighter than the present will be incentive enough to get through a year or two where this team may not be great, but will have reasons for hope. And I think that's what we're going to see. All right, we've got more to get to. We'll talk about some of the implications of what Darche said at his press conference, including how it affects Bridgeport. We'll talk about Marcus Hogberg's season. And for our Islanders' birthday of the day, a defensive center who was with the Islanders in the early to mid-90s. Let's see if you can guess who this Ottawa, Ontario native is. All that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, so fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And hockey fans, you can also use your knowledge of hockey to bet on the playoffs, so check out all the latest odds on FanDuel. New to FanDuel, this is the perfect time to sign up. You could head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Again, FanDuel.com, place that first $5 bet. If you win it, you get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. So I really liked, for the most part, what Mathieu Darche had to say. And he talked about, what he said was so reasonable. He said he would be honest with the players, even when he was delivering something that wasn't easy to tell them. He said he would be as transparent as he could be with the media and the fans, which, quite honestly, is all you could ask. You don't want your general manager to be telling too much to the media because it could ruin a trade or a negotiation with a player. But you don't want them lying, and you don't want them to go inside the cones of silence like Lou Lamoriello did, where he would speak to the media twice a year for, 15 minutes at a time, say next to nothing in a lot of words, and, back to the cones of silence. Darche was forthcoming and came across as honest. That is something I think everyone associated with this team will appreciate. Now, the other question is this. You start talking about you want a team that plays fast. Well, there are some players that don't fit that description. And while I'm not saying every player on this roster needs to, have excellent skating speed, there are guys who very well may not fit that style. And there are guys who probably will. I think the chances of Noah Dobson staying on this team, which were already high, let's face it, the contract is going to be the big issue. But the chances of Dobson staying long-term, I think, just went up. But then there are players who are not as fast. Scott Mayfield, Ryan Polak, Alexander Romanov, Anders Lee, not that fast, although he certainly worked on his skating and did rather well this past season. But again, there are guys on this roster who may not fit the team, and there are guys on this roster who will fit the team. And that, again, will unfold over the next few weeks, and we will delve deeper into each of these factors in upcoming shows starting next week. As far as Bridgeport goes, there is no doubt that Bridgeport has been neglected. And Darche, what he had to say about the organization was great. He said, I believe in developing a winning environment. So the AHL will be a focus for me. Your players have to be ready. Let's face it, every team needs players called up during the year. And he talked about, when he said that you want to be a consistent playoff contender, he went on and discussed drafting and developing, which is something the Islanders struggled with mightily under Lou Lamoriello. And furthermore, he said, and this is again, to me, it was always hockey 101, but the Islanders in recent years were the only NHL team not to do this. They did not hold a development camp after the draft. Well, guess what? This year, they're going to do it. Here's what Darche said. I think it's important. That's your first touch on a player. You draft a player and you show them what it is to be a professional. You show them what the standards are in the gym. You show them what the standards are in the NHL. It's your first touch on them. Not having players who are in college able to attend these prospect camps makes zero sense. It was cutting corners financially, maybe it was, you know what? I'm not going to try to explain Lou Lamoriello's logic on why he did that. I'm sure he has reasons, whether I agree with them or not. But at least these mysterious things that were going on are going to be corrected. And, by the way, a new coach, Rick Kowalski, out at Bridgeport, as well as the rest of the coaching staff. And we don't know yet about Chris Lamoriello, who is now, or is still officially, the GM in Bridgeport. But let's face facts. With Lou Lamoriello still under contract until June 30th. And apparently in the background, in attendance at this press conference, announcing the firing of Chris Lamoriello would maybe not have struck the right tone at that moment. I believe we will see the Islanders move on from Chris Lamoriello as the GM of Bridgeport. That's not official yet. I know there are going to be some fans, myself included, who think that move is overdue based on the rampant problems that exist in Bridgeport. But you know what? Mathieu Darche has experience dealing with the AHL. He talked about that at the press conference. And I think it will take time, but we're going to see more attention, people put into place to run Bridgeport in a better way. Again, AHL, you don't need to win the Calder Cup, but you need to be respectable and you need to develop players. And I think better talent down there, better integration between the AHL team, the ECHL team, and the NHL team, all of this is just flat out, plain old good news for the New York Islanders now and in the future. So, won't happen overnight, but it's happening. And I'm optimistic that some of the necessary changes to get us out of the muddy middle are at least going to be tried. We don't know how successful Darch will or will not be, but I like the way he spoke. He was confident but not cocky. He sounded knowledgeable. He had a plan. The plan made sense. And I think and I hope that he will be somebody who can help this franchise get out of the muddy middle and get back to being a contending hockey team again, which is what the players and the fans deserve. Because let's face it, it has now been 42 years since the New York Islanders have won a Stanley Cup. And it's been 41 years since they've been in a Stanley Cup final. It is time to end that drought. And let's hope that Thursday, May 29th, was the start of the era that gets that done. It's going to be a roller coaster ride at times, but hopefully the arrow remains pointed up even when there are dips, and the Islanders are in good hands and moving forward toward bigger and better things for this franchise, these players, or whoever the players are going to be, and this fan base that deserves so much more than what they've gotten in recent years. We've got more to get to on today's show. We continue our player-by-player analysis of this roster with goaltender Marcus Hogberg. We'll have that and our Islanders birthday of the day next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. So we continue our player-by-player analysis of the Islanders roster. We talk about the player's season, plus what future role, if any, they have in the organization. We did J.G. Pageau yesterday. Everydayers will remember. We've already done Semyon Varlamov, Anthony Duclair, Tony DeAngelo, Matthew Barzal. We've done a lot of players. We've got more to come, but today, Marcus Hogberg. And Hogberg was signed last year during the offseason to a 2-year free agent contract. And Hogberg, originally drafted by the Ottawa Senators in the 3rd round back in 2013, spent parts of 3 seasons with the Sens, never playing more than 24 games in an NHL season. Now, this year for the Islanders, he started the season off in Bridgeport, ended up coming up when Varlamov was hurt, played in a total of 15 games, starting 11. He was 2-6-3 with a .338 goals against average and an .878 save percentage. And you can look at those numbers and honestly say, you know what? That's really mediocre. And it is. Those are not great numbers. Those are numbers below his career NHL average. But first of all, as far as Marcus Hogberg was concerned, it was a tale of two seasons or two parts of seasons with the New York Islanders. He came up and finally got a chance to start a few games and played great for the first 5 or 6 or 7 games. And then he got hurt. And when he came back, he was pretty bad. And, you know, if you look at his stats before the injury, they were like all-star statistics. Not that I expected him to keep those numbers up, because that's not who he is. So, look, Marcus Hogberg is a veteran. He is 30 years old, turned 31 in November. He's got good size, 6'5", 234 pounds. Here's what Marcus Hogberg is. He is the third goalie on the depth chart of this organization as of right now. That means he starts the season in Bridgeport, barring injuries. And, you know, the fact that he started 11 games for the Islanders this past year, that's more than you want him to start, ideally. You want him to come up for a game or two if there's an injury, maybe, you know, back up for a game, come into one game if necessary, if there's a back-to-back when someone gets hurt. But you don't want him to play a lot of NHL minutes. Marcus Hogberg was brought in here as an insurance policy. And that's essentially what he was. Now, he has 1 year left on his contract. I don't see any reason that he won't be back. If he's not back, you got to get another third-string goalie. And depending on the health of Semyon Varlamov, Varley said, hey, I think I'll be ready for training camp. But Varley is in his late 30s now and prone to injury. And if it happens again, the injury situation, you need to have a quality third goalie in there. Is Marcus Hogberg a useful third goalie who can come in and give you 3 or 4 games if you need it? Yeah, he is. But is he somebody you want to rely on long-term as your backup even? Probably not. He has not, over the course of his NHL career, proven that that's what he can do. So we're going to see what happens. I think he's back in the organization as the third goalie. This is the last year of his contract, and if he doesn't show a lot more, he could be gone. And who knows, maybe Mathieu Darche wants to bring in his own third goalie to the organization. If he returns, and I'd say it's 60-40 that he does, then he's the third goalie in this organization. Again, the veteran at Bridgeport, mentoring whoever the younger goalie at Bridgeport is. Time now for our Islanders' birthday of the day. And, well, Thursday was the 62nd birthday of former Islanders forward Claude Loisel, the Ottawa native, a second-round pick of the Red Wings back in 1981. He made his NHL debut in 81-82 with Detroit, later played for the Devils, the Nordiques, the Maple Leafs, and joined the Islanders late in the 91-92 season. Stayed with the team for 3 years and was a part of the big playoff push to the conference final in 1993, where he had 3 assists in 18 games. Loisel, always a defensive forward, 92 goals and 209 career points in 616 games, add 4 goals and 15 points in 41 playoff games. One of his better games as an Islander, November 28th, 1992, Islanders facing the Philadelphia Flyers. Flyers goalie Stefan Beauregard. Glenn Healy is in between the pipes for the New York Islanders. And in this game, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Claude Loisel ends up assisting on a goal by Brad Delgarno. Pat Flatley, the other assist. That goal made it 4-1 Islanders in the second period. And in the third period, Loisel extends the Islanders' lead with his second goal of the year. Midway through the period, Jeff Norton and Vladimir Malakov, the assist. Islanders, in a fight-filled game, crushed the Flyers 9-3. And for Claude Loisel, he had a goal and an assist. He was a +2. He had 5 shots on goal and, again, helped the Islanders get the dub. So happy birthday to Claude Loisel. He is our Islanders' birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On NHL Game Night. Every game, every night until the Stanley Cup champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. You can find NHL Game Night on Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. And if you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. And it's great to talk Islanders hockey with you anytime. Everydayers, we are back on Monday. We will have hopefully some more news concerning Mathieu Darche and some of his moves. Also, maybe some signings, if he makes any signings of restricted free agents, etc. And we'll continue our player-by-player look at the team with the captain, Anders Lee. Until then, have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. And of course, let's go Islanders.